So corporates are making investments at a record clip with over 13 billion invested in the first half of 2017 in over 700 companies. Corporates are creating venture capital arms faster than ever. We're seeing bigger and bigger rounds. For example, in Israeli startups, recently Via raised 250 million, led by the Daimler Group. Get Taxi raised 300 million, led by Volkswagen. And that begs the question, how should startups collaborate with corporates, and what's the role that startups have to play in bringing innovation to the corporate? So I'd like to ask you guys, first as a quick introduction, can you tell us what you do in your organizations and how broadly do you work with startups? Zack, why don't we start with you?
Sure. Hi, good morning. Zack Weisfeld, Tazzari for the Israelis. I run a team called Microsoft for Startups. It's our global program for startups all over the world, and it's a fairly end-to-end proposition. We have 100,000 startups leveraging our breadth offers. We have 200 accelerator partners around the world. We work with VCs around the world. We have our own 7 accelerators that we started out of Israel, the first one five and a half years ago. So it's a very active startup program. Also Microsoft, we have Moni here in the back, Microsoft Ventures is a fairly new motion at Microsoft, about 20 months now, invested in 41 companies. So Microsoft is highly invested in startups. And
can you give us an idea of scale? Like how many startups are you talking about Microsoft engaging with on an annual level?
So again, on the broad side, it's 100,000. If you look at our accelerators, so we have 650 graduates. They raise about $3 billion, 48 exits. So the program is only second to Y Combinator when it looks at the results of that program. And it's very different, I think, that many other corporates are engaging with startups. I think we've seen the light and the importance of working with startups. I think generally, and I'm not sure if it's a surprise, innovation is going to be really hard to come by the big corporations. Super hard.
That's a really good point I want to unpack in a second. Yep. Mike, why don't we go to you? BT.
Hi, is the mic? Oh, it is on. Hi everyone, Mike Hodgson, for those of you that don't know me. I'm part of the research and innovation function of BT. For a while I was based in Silicon Valley, so that's where I cut my teeth looking for innovation, and then in 2005 I came back to the UK and took on a role to grow the innovation program. And what we do as a team, as a global scouting team, as you can imagine, is we find the startups and then we try and bring them into the company. And a big part of what the rest of our team does is how we land those startups in our company. To give you some numbers, we don't see that many. We probably filter out through about 5,000 or 6,000 startups. We probably actively do something with, say, 200 a year, and we probably see 10 pop out the end of the sausage machine after it's gone through it.
Interesting. Thanks very much. Gabriele?
Can you hear me? Yeah. Hi, Gabriele Tazzari. I'm the Research and Development Director in YNAB Group, and I've been the CTO during the startup of Yux, so the first 11 years. So we've been a startup, and both companies were a startup before the merger. So we definitely know what it takes to be a startup, and also the main elements of a success in the startup. So what we did, is we haven't lost our eagerness into looking at the future and being in touch with these new companies, and we have a track record of working activities with startups, which is mainly organic, so it's based on co-development, and we've seen a lot of companies that have been included in our main functions that has found an exit strategy. Maybe they were acquired from a bigger...
So hold that thought for a second, because I want to talk about the different models, and it's really interesting that we have actually Microsoft with investment, acceleration, we have BT with scouting, and we have Yux Net-a-Porter with partnerships or co-development. Can you tell me about sort of like success stories and like the numbers you'd like to brag about? Like, what do you consider this was an amazing collaboration with startups, and why should startups come and work and seek to work with you? Shouldn't they be afraid that you'll copy them or undercut them? You know, how do you convince startups that this is a good thing?
Okay, shall I take that one, Zack? Okay. Yeah, so, I mean, there's a couple of success stories, I think, in the audience. Dotan, are you there, Dotan? If you are, wave. So, Dotan's from Idamu. He's one of the partners that we brought in. So, we think it's absolutely vital. I mean, in BT, we have R&I. R is 200 people doing research, internal innovation program. The rest of us, the other 50, what we call the applied innovation team. And our job is to find it outside. And it's always a good benchmark to have. If you go back BT 20 years ago, we had our labs, we invented everything. And then when we went to market with that thing, the market just didn't, like, well, why didn't you come and talk to us 2 years ago? So what we found is there's a rich vein of innovation that we can get from the startup scene. You know, it started in Silicon Valley and we've grown the Israel side of that. And to give you an idea, we probably generate about £200 million worth of benefit per year for BT through the startup engagement.
So your value proposition is come to me and I'll get you revenue.
Yeah,
basically.
So, well, with startups, it's either something we can use when we downstream startups. It's either something we can use ourselves internally to improve operational efficiency or customer experience, or what we can sell through the organisation to our customers, consumer, SMB, corporate.
Really interesting. Zack, like 100,000 startups a year getting touched by Microsoft in various forms. Surely there must be some challenges. So like, how do you get the best out of this and avoid the bad?
It's very challenging. Going back to your question before, ISVs or software developers we work with in the last year have made around $1 billion directly business with us through us and created a pipeline of about 6 billion. Microsoft is probably one of the best connected companies out there to other businesses, not just offering Microsoft as a business partner for startups, but actually offering our network. We have 45,000 sellers out there in the world selling solutions that are looking for relevant solutions based on Microsoft technology, leveraging our cloud, that they can go out and sell out there. So the value proposition of Microsoft working with startups, we give startups unfair advantage when it comes to market access and business opportunities. Is it easy? No, it's super hard. When we started this new iteration of program about 6 years ago, and we've decided to start an accelerator, for example, most of the people inside and outside the company said it's nuts. Not a single entrepreneur in his right mind would want to join a Microsoft accelerator. It doesn't make sense. Well, apparently it does.
What do you think made the difference? The fact that you guys take no equity to participate in the program, or?
Yeah. So the difference is on there are different aspects. So corporates have a big challenge with NIH, non-invented here approach, right? A lot of people internally have the wrong DNA to work with people from the outside. So one of the things that we've hired a set of entrepreneurs. You know, I've been an entrepreneur for the last 27, 28 years. It's my third time in Microsoft. And most of the people I hire, the first thing they say is, I don't want to work for Microsoft. Well, guess what? They do, and they do a phenomenal job connecting startups and Microsoft. You talked about the fact that people are afraid of corporates stealing their IP. One of the work we do is protecting the startups from doing the wrong moves, either with us or our customers. So having the right DNA, having the right people, having the right motion, that's all about them first, and only second about us. It's working extremely well for us, but in order for that to work, we need to put the startups first.
Yeah, that's a good point. Gabriele, you guys are doing co-development much more on the technical side. Can you describe what a successful partnership looks like for the startup?
Yeah, definitely. We have shorter track records compared to British Telecom and Microsoft. So we are still very focused on our growth, and definitely customer experience and engagement is our continuous focus. Whatever we can do with a startup that is capable of increasing or supercharging of innovation into this field is absolutely a success story for both, because our position will give them visibility on one side and, of course, revenues. So these are the
I see. So you're offering visibility and revenues plus the technical combined force maybe of joining a $2 billion revenue company. Let's make a switch a little bit. After all, this is a conference about creating a bridge between Israel and the UK. Let's talk a little bit about Israeli startups. Mike, controversially, as we were talking earlier, you don't have a presence in Israel. How do you explain that?
Yeah, so before we came on stage, Zack and I were chatting to see if we could find something to disagree on. And I know you were very keen, Eze, that we were going to find something. And we finally found something. Contrary to what everyone else does, we don't have a lab in Tel Aviv. I mean, I go there a lot, and my colleagues go there a lot, but we don't have a lab. We did have about 6 years ago, and it was a real disaster. And the problem is, it was too far away from the mothership. I mean, we have 2 hours north of here, we have Adastral Park. It's our big R&D centre, 3,500 people there. It is the centre of gravity for everything that BT does around innovation. Satellite offices don't seem to work, satellite labs. The great thing about working with Israel, that you guys are not shy to get on an aeroplane and come and see us and come and be part of the ecosystem at the labs. And the beauty of our labs is everyone comes through there. So all the seniors in my business come through there. If you want to try and influence those guys, put the technology in front of them. They won't come to Tel Aviv, they don't all go to Silicon Valley, but they all go through Adastral Park at some point. The other thing is, all our customers come through there. We have 2 customer visits a day. So it's a great validation of the things that we find when we can put them in there and expose them.
Don't you think you're leaving money on the table?
No. So I had a conversation with someone a while back. One of our competitors in Europe, I think their Israeli lab and his innovation program is about $10 million a year. And someone said, you should be doing that. That's what BT should be doing. And I said, well, what outcome from that? And they said, they're going to do deals with about 5 or 6 Israeli startups this year. I said, well, the way I do it, I'm going to do 10 this year, and it cost me about $100,000.
Interesting.
Go figure.
And Zack, in contrast, you started the global program for startups from Israel. So
beyond that, so first of all, it's interesting you see Israel is remote from headquarters in the UK. You know, our headquarters in Seattle, Washington, which is a bit further out, and I think it's a blessing. So being remote from headquarters in many cases, so a lot of corporates are coming to me and say, Zack, what's the secret of doing that properly? I said, do it outside of headquarters, because it's going to be shut down so many times, and so many people are going to want it to be something else than what it should be, so do these things outside of headquarters. So Microsoft R&D in Israel was the first R&D center Microsoft opened outside of the US. It's a super successful one. It's grew 25% in the last year, where most of our location actually shrunk. It's one of the places we've made most of our acquisitions in the last couple of years is in Israel. Moni Chassid here in the back is the first place we built our Microsoft Venture Fund was in Israel. The first place outside of the US was in Israel, and now London came in as the third place. We're strongly believers in innovation coming out of Israel. The other thing is, what I started saying at the beginning, innovation coming out of corporate is something that doesn't really happen that often. Many of us think of disruptive innovation, trying to build that out of a large corporate, doesn't usually happen. It's very hard to build those inside a corporation, older corporation. We're not that old. But usually innovation comes from 2 places: startups or skunk work. So, and for both, either startups, of course, but also skunk work, a team that doesn't really listen to what they're asked to do and they want to do something a bit different, is something that we Israelis are notorious for. And I don't know, we don't have time for the story. There's a great story out there about the straight banana story. I don't know if you're familiar with the story. Yeah. So how do you manage an Israeli R&D team versus a US R&D team? But I think that's the unique value proposition that still holds true, and the reason there are 300 global R&D centers, and in most cases I know they're very happy with the work that's done out of Israel, it's because it's different. It thinks differently, it operates differently, and it's something that's hard to copy. Just this culture piece, something that's super hard to copy. We're investing in Israel, we're going to continue to invest in Israel. It's where we see a lot of interesting innovation coming out, so pretty different approach.
And Gabriele, can you tell me, you guys famously don't invest and don't acquire startups necessarily or on a regular basis. How do you attract innovation, and what have you done with Israel, if you have any tangible examples?
Well, actually, we've been growing this organically, as I said before, starting from UK and Italy, and also involving, because we have offices in the US. So we are in touch with these startups, and we allow them sometimes to make experiments and start working with us, being exposed to our customer base, which is pretty interesting in terms of e-commerce. So it's a vertical thing. What we've done is to improve even our local presence with universities and even secondary school to help, develop the next generation of entrepreneurs and technical skills. But we also try to, let's say, look at the new vibrant scene of Israel on one side and also Shenzhen, because we've seen a lot of things happening there as well.
So if we touch on a little bit on the topic of disruption, artificial intelligence, computer vision, machine learning are changing whole industries. We're seeing, for example, in the automotive industry, the disruption is very ripe, and corporates are reacting in different ways, maybe in face of this disruption. What do you think are the next sectors that are going to get disrupted, and what technologies are disrupting your companies at the moment? Where do you feel threatened? So I think one of the things that we tend to focus on, our biggest success story in recent years has been around customer experience. There's a lot of activity around Israeli startups on customer experience. You wouldn't think it was such a broad and amazing topic, but it is. And customer experience is probably the most important thing a service provider can get right. And we've tried to fix a lot of this ourselves, and we've been successful in places, but to really accelerate that, we've been tapping into the startup scene. So, for instance, WalkMe, many people in the audience probably know WalkMe. We brought them in internally. We used them ourselves to move a sales team from Siebel to Salesforce. Massively impactful, no impact on the customer whatsoever. So if there's any startups here that can improve the customer experience, go to Mike.
Come find me.
Okay.
So look, we believe both in disruption in the cloud and disruption in the edge. And AI has a big play that it's doing, and it's far from being, the world of seeing AI gets into more and more places. We're just at the beginning of that. I think many startups here are doing exactly that, taking the very unique capabilities coming out of the Israeli army of AI and machine vision and putting it to work in different areas. We've just announced an investment we've done, and Efrat is here, in aerobotics, which is a super interesting company. It's in the autonomous drone space. I think super interesting space in the way that it changes the way industrial world is dealing with so many aspects and issues, and you may not expect Microsoft to invest in something like that. So look, the world is full with amazing opportunities, and it's just super exciting times. What are we concerned with? We're definitely concerned about the next wave of change, and where IoT is going, where autonomous cars are going, etc. So we're making sure that we're involved in many of the new areas that seems to be disrupted now. If it's blockchain or if it's autonomous X. So we're making sure we're not going to miss the next big leap in technology, and I think we're doing the right investments to make sure that at least we're in the know and we can make thoughtful decisions.
To add?
We are definitely thrilled by this new AI wave that is coming. And since we are still pretty focused compared to these other companies, we still believe we build this internally so that we have the skill also to judge what's happening outside, because otherwise there's no... And this is still a key for the co-development activity, because otherwise there's no way to talk the same language. So we just see that you're doing a good thing and we try to acquire you. That's not the way for us, not yet at least.
So just two topics I would add to that while we're doing a call, the troll, is IoT and cyber. Our role in IoT, we're not quite sure. The market's still playing out, but the core competence that we have is network and how we connect all those devices together. So we know we're going to have a big part to play. Whether we play in the application space, I don't know, but those applications will drive IoT traffic, which we will carry. When it comes to cyber, we're one of the world leaders in providing cybersecurity solutions. We run the critical national infrastructure for the UK, so we pride ourselves on our cyber. But we're always trying to stay on the bleeding edge of that. So any cyber companies out there very interested as well.
So that's really interesting, and thanks for those answers. Perhaps last question, as our time came to an end. Do you have any advice for founders, entrepreneurs who are maybe starting their companies now, looking at these combined billions of dollars of revenue, salespeople, technology, IP on the stage? How should they think about working with you? What are the best practices, and what are the tips that you have for these entrepreneurs today?
So corporates are super hungry for this, right? Most of corporates are afraid of the disruption coming. So you have a very unique opportunity in time to find the right people in these corporates that can help you, because again, they're very hungry, they're looking for the right way to engage, so leverage that. We're putting, and other corporations are putting a lot of money behind this effort of getting close to startups, getting close to innovators. It's the best of times, I think, for startups to leverage what corporate has to give. So,
one word answers.
Yeah, I copy what Zack says. We're super excited. Our innovation program, our scouting innovation program, has never been as strong. We improve it every year. We get better and better at downstreaming these technologies into our organization. So, please keep helping us.
We're definitely looking for a successful partnership, as we did in the past. What I have to say to the entrepreneurs is that if they have an idea and a vision, and this vision is pretty peculiar, keep this vision and do not dilute it to follow what others are doing or what the trends are moving.